You're watching Traders Morning Setups with Dex the Algo Capitalist. Dex created his pulse wave price trigger reports over 2 decades ago, and he's been using them to ride the pulse waves as a full-time trader ever since. Find out more about Dex's reports and sign up for our next webinar to learn how to use them at pulsewavetrading.com.
Good morning. Hopefully everyone is having a great morning. Hopefully you got a really good night's sleep and you ready to get in here and bang it out with these markets today. We have a lot to talk about, and I mean a lot to talk about. So I hope you're sitting down. As a matter of fact, I think you need to be strapped in. You need to have your seatbelt on. And you need to have it clicked into place, all right? You need to be ready for this because it's going to be a lot of turbulence. We have a lot to discuss, and some of it is outrageous. So I hope you're ready to take this journey with me. Like I said, it's going to be a bumpy ride. We got a lot to talk about. And due to the YouTube algorithms, I will have to be very cautious in what I say. And so I will do my best to do just that. All right. I will try my best. I'm going to be on my best behavior so I won't get in trouble with the algorithms. So in markets today, we're going to go and talk about the top stock picks that hedge funds and mutual funds agree on. In tech news, a key player in the world of AI is an English professor you've likely never heard of. And in business news, check out the $190 million Seattle real estate empire Jeff Bezos is leaving behind with his move to Miami. Yeah, you probably didn't know about that. And in our big story, ain't no stopping M&A. But first, we got to get into these markets. Overnight market, you see the US dollar index did power up and got into the 104 handle. We had 104.10, and now the market has pulled back to 103.92, down 13 pips. The euro is up 12 pips at 108.02. Pound sterling up 12 pips at 125.96. And we have the Aussie up 35 pips at 65.88. Bear with me just for a second here. Okay, I see what happened. Never mind. Let me continue. All right. Let's see. The Bitcoin futures are up 230, trading at 44,510. We have the Ethereum futures down 7.5 points at 2284.5. Crude oil down $1.54 per barrel. If you watched last night's watch list video session that we did, we talked about what the algos were saying and that this market was going to dip lower and get back into the 60s. And it's on its way to doing that now. As far as nat gas, we are up 2 pennies at $2.73. Gold futures up $12.70 at $2,048.70 per ounce. Silver up 2 cents at $24.57 per ounce. Copper up 2 pennies at $3.80. Dow futures up 98 points at 36,287. M&E S&P 500 futures up 21.5 points at 45.96.5. M&E NASDAQ 100 futures up 115.25 at 16,024 even. Russell up 12.5 points at 1872.3. Soybeans up 2 pennies per bushel at $13.07 a bushel. Corn is up a penny at $4.91 per bushel, trying to push its way up to the $5 handle. And wheat is up 9 cents at $6.41 per bushel. Now let's scan the market for our morning trade setups to see if there are any in play. And we're starting from the top of the list and going all the way down the list. Do we have any morning setups? So far, we do not. We have a couple of close calls, but no cigar. Let's see what else we got here. Nope. All right, no morning setups. Okay, wow. That's uh that's a rare one. Normally you have at least one setup, but hey, it is what it is. All right, so now our big story, but first, a word from our sponsor. Alert, alert, alert. We have what must be a mistake on our website. I am seeing that the Pulse Wave Price Trigger Reports Pro membership is available for just $888 a year. Obviously, I'm firing all my people and calling the police. But before I do that, maybe you want to go and grab one. Get yourself the best yearly subscription price we have ever had on our website. This sale smells like it is about to expire, so grab a slice of that sale price cheese before Frank fixes his mistake. PulseWaveTrading.com. See if you can get there before we put it back to a reasonable price. PulseWaveTrading.com. All right, so in our cover story today, we have ain't no stopping M&A. Shortly after U.S. President Joe Biden took office in 2021, he looked to make good on his promise of scrutinizing corporate deal making, particularly in big tech. But as he enters the final year of his initial term, the floodgates for big M&A deals have opened. The strict antitrust stance of Biden and Lena Khan, the Federal Trade Commission's chief he appointed, hasn't stopped a wave of deal announcements since September that total more than $170 billion. A key turning point was Khan's failure to stop Microsoft's $69 billion bid to buy Activision's Blizzard. Yeah. Like the first one to take a dip at a pool party, a court ruling in favor of Microsoft and against the FTC in July was a signal for companies and their bankers to join the fun. Now, everyone from Cisco to ExxonMobil is getting in on the action with pricey transactions of their own. Even Warren Buffett is reportedly considering helping to finance a high-profile deal in the energy space. But the starkest example of how bold deal makers have gotten is a potential tie-up between giant health issuer Cigna and Humana. The deal is a long shot to get approved, but the fact both sides are even trying shows corporate America's ambivalent views toward the Biden administration's antitrust agenda. Basically, they're saying that the president is a paper tiger, a lame duck. He has no power, authority to do anything or will to do anything. So the recent deal making spree is likely only the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be a tidal wave of M&A ahead now that the fear over Khan and the FTC squashing deals has mostly subsided. The revelation comes to a perfect time for the industry. Bankers have been desperate to get the M&A market going after an elongated drought. That, coupled with the market predicting significant cuts to interest rates next year, means things could ramp up quickly. And rest assured, bankers aren't interested in nickel and dime type deals. Earlier this year, Goldman Sachs was reportedly targeting mega deals. Those over $10 billion as a way to get back on track. But it's not just the size of the deals they'll be worth watching. There could be some interesting tie-ups between large incumbents and the startups that initially set out to disrupt them. With VC money drying up in an unwelcoming IPO market, late-stage companies might look to be acquired by the companies they once looked to topple. Hedge funds and mutual funds are buying these stocks by the boatload. Goldman Sachs analyzed more than 1,200 funds to find the stocks both mutual funds and hedge funds are betting on. Reading between the lines of what central bankers are saying about rate will start cutting interest rates, with many expecting it to start early next year. I say, no way, Jose. These predictions probably won't happen, but it'd be wild if they did. RFJ Jr. wins the U.S. presidential election. McDonald's stock skyrockets as Ozempic encourages unhealthy habits. Saxo Bank's annual list of outrageous but unappreciated scenarios that would append market outlines fascinating what if scenarios. Now, supposedly, they have been right on occasion. America's smartest AI optimist, it's not Sam Altman. Satya Nadella or any other big names you associate with AI. Instead, our greatest AI visionary is an English professor in Illinois named Ted Underwood. He's convinced that AI will help us think more deeply and help scholars uncover exciting new truths. Leaked email. Microsoft is shaking up its security organization. The giant has named a new chief information security officer, according to an internal email. Bridgewater's former tech chief officer, Igor Tazansky, will start his new role on January the 1st, and the mini wave of Amazon employees quitting right now. Leaked internal messages showed that they cited issues like the strict RTO mandate, layoffs, and lack of respect. One former employee even publicly shared that the sheer number of AWS resignations in the last week is stunning. In business, the previously underreported Seattle properties of Jeff Bezos, he injected some serious cash into Seattle's real estate market. But now that he's moving to Miami with fiancee Lauren Sanchez, he leaves behind a mini empire of 8 homes in ritzy Seattle suburbs. Business Insider's fourth cohort of emerging commercial and residential real estate talent, the 20 professionals, all 35 years old or younger, are making waves across a vast industry. The list of rising stars includes talent from firms like Cushman and Wakefield to startups rethinking old norms. How Mark Cuban forced the biggest U.S. pharmacy to append its business. CVS just announced a change to how prescription drugs get priced at pharmacies. It has been facing market pressure from new models like Cuban's cost plus drugs. In other news, One Medical employees are furious that Amazon is changing their compensation plan, leaked messages show. Twitch's chief revenue officer is set to leave the company. Tommy Tuberville finally caves and lifts hold on most military promotions. Elon Musk teases new details about Tesla's next car after the Cybertruck. Elder millennials are stuck in a lifestyle they can't afford. A lot of things are getting cheaper. Here's why you probably haven't noticed. There haven't been this few job openings in 2 years. It's exactly what the Fed's been hoping for. 3 things centurions regret, according to longevity researchers who talk to the world's oldest people every day. And there are 4 shakeups coming to the U.S. housing market in 2024. Grand Theft Auto 6 publisher's stock falls after first trailer reveals the video game won't come out until 2025. And prepare for the S&P 500 to plunge 23% by mid-2024 and the U.S. economy to sink into recession, according to J.P. Morgan's top charts guru. What's happening today? The fourth Republican presidential debate is tonight. Participants include Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Vivek Ramaswamy, however you say that. Happy birthday to a boogie with the hoodie. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Princess Sophia, and Andrew Cuomo were also born on this day. And earnings today, Campbell Soup and Chewy, among other companies. Now it's time for the good stuff. Yeah, I told you, you got to have your seatbelt on. See, we just took off, and that was smooth. But now we're cruising at an altitude of 40,000 feet. So you want to remain seated as we're about to come into some turbulence. U.S. students' math scores plunge in global education assessment program for international student assessment scores in the US and the OECD average. Unfortunately, US students lag behind their peers in many industrialized countries when it comes to math, according to the results of a global exam released on Tuesday. Here's why it matters. US students saw a 13-point drop in their 2022 program for international student assessment, known as PISA, math results when compared to the 2018 exam. The 2022 math score was not only lower than it was in 2012, but it was among the lowest ever measured by PISA in mathematics for the US, per the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development country. While the US scored below the OECD's average in math, it managed to score above the OECD average in reading and science. The 2022 results found that US students scored 1 point below their 2018 reading score and 3 points below their 2018 science score. However, their performances in those areas were higher than in 2012. The 2018 PISA assessment found that US students straggled behind their peers in East Asia and Europe, per the Washington Post. What they're saying in a statement Tuesday responding to the latest results, Education Secretary Miguel Cardona praised the U.S. for moving up in the world rankings, but acknowledged there's much work to be done. We need a math revolution, Cardona said, noting that math is critical to our global competitiveness and leadership. Now, in context, PISA examines the proficiency of 15-year-olds in reading, mathematics, and science worldwide. The 2022 PISA edition is the first to take place since the pandemic and compares the test results of nearly 700,000 students across 81 OECD member states and partner economies. The exam, coordinated by the OECD, was first administered in 2000 and conducted every 3 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The 2021 test was delayed until 2022. So here's the big picture. 31 countries and economies maintained or improved upon their 2018 math scores, including Switzerland and Japan. Countries that did so shared some common characteristics, including shorter school closures during the pandemic and fewer impediments to remote learning, per the report. 10 countries and economies, Finland, Hong Kong, Ireland, Japan, Korea, Latvia, Macchio, and the UK, saw their student scores proficiently in all three domains and had levels of socioeconomic fairness, per the report. Now, in closing, what this means is the dumbing down of America is successful. That's basically what it is. Americans are becoming dumber and stupider, and that is exactly what the globalist agenda wants in the first place. So, a round of applause for the dumbing down of American students, because that's exactly what's happening according to the report. Now, there's been a lot of talk about not just the global economy, but and where it may be headed. Well, I know you don't want to hear it. I know you don't want to, but after what you just heard with the dumbing down of American students, then you have other crises at work. We are, and I've said it before, witnessing the the organized and controlled demolition and destruction of the United States of America. Yeah. And did you know that world leaders gathered over the weekend for the COP28 climate summit in Dubai? They faced an uncomfortable reality check from the conference president, Sultan Al Jaber, who stated there's no sign warning that fossil fuel policies would take the world back into caves. Nevertheless, no lesser mind than Vice President Kamala Harris pledged another $3 billion to the Green Climate Fund at the summit, seeking to help developing countries adapt to the climate crisis as well as decreasing fossil fuel production, according to CNN. The cult like worship and escalation of these policies is what led to the discussion between Tucker Carlson and Michael Schellenberger, author of the must read Apocalypse Never, highlighting the increasingly obvious disconnect between global elites and the general public, most specifically in the context of environmental policies. We know that the pillars of civilization are cheap energy, meritocracy, law and order, and free speech. And all four of those pillars are currently under attack, warned Schellenberger in his typical erudite and fact based manner. The hypocrisy is simply Orwellian. As Schellenberger recently wrote on his public Substack, flying on private jets to a climate conference to announce plans to make energy even more expensive for working people is bread and circuses, except there's no bread. And the circus consists of rich people celebrating their wealth, morality, and superiority. Now, Carlson begins by pointing out that the drastic climate change policies are fundamentally nonsense, asking Schellenberger just how long this posturing of environmentalism can go on. We're watching people rush and push toward an orthodoxy at increasing volume with interesting hysteria and with increasingly severe penalties for disagreeing. What is that? Schellenberger replies, global elites used to pretend to care about people, but they're not even pretending anymore. Adding that the cheap energy was currently under attack, explaining how it directly affects modern civilization. You start with cheap energy, but you can't maintain modern civilization without cheap energy. He argues that environmentalism used to have a kind of utopian positive side. That's all gone now. Sadly, but clearly, the two highlight the fact that financial interests are behind the push for renewable energy sources, claiming that oligarchs and political figures are promoting expensive and inefficient energy sources to control energy markets. This is particularly clear from the detrimental influence of the ESG movement on the oil and gas industry. All right. Simply put, the current environmentalist movement has become nihilistic and anti human. So the journalist continues, the attack on cheap energy is truly an attack on modern civilization, and it should frighten us, and we should be aware. What gives me hope is that I think it's finally becoming obvious to people that it's a scam and that the people that are pushing this really hate civilization, or at least they hate civilization for others. They want it entirely for themselves. And they're in the grip of a really dogmatic cult philosophy. I mean, I think it's fair to call it a death cult at this point when you're stifling energy supplies that are necessary to keep people alive. I don't know what else to call it other than an anti-human death cult. Carlson replies, that's right. It's not environmentalism. It's the snarling face of tyranny. And we know this because they exercised this back in negative $100 a barrel. Talk about stifling supply. That was taking supply away 100%. They don't care, folks. Now, as a result of their greed and as a result of all of the nonsense that they have been pushing, this has led to a very dangerous situation. And I do mean dangerous. Did you see on the television the other day where they showed that the national Christmas tree collapsed and fell over? This is not the first sign we've seen of the U.S. collapse. We've seen it first at the Olympics. Remember that, where all the flags were waving up high, but the U.S. fell. And it was the only flag to fall during that ceremony. And there have been numerous other, um, you know, signs of the times, if you will, pointing in that direction. So let's talk about the significance of America's fallen national Christmas tree. America's national Christmas tree fell down, as you know. That tree is the most important national symbol of our most important national holiday. The National Christmas Tree Lighting Ceremony has been performed every year since 1923. And so the falling of the tree has happened as we approach the centennial anniversary of this tradition. Do you think that this was just a coincidence? No way. I believe that the downing of the most important national symbol of our most important national holiday is significant. A very powerful gust of wind knocked the 40-foot tree completely to the ground. The national Christmas tree near the White House was knocked over on Tuesday when strong winds roared through the Washington area. The National Park Service said the 40-foot tree from the Monongalia National Forest in West Virginia fell over during a strong wind gust. Interestingly, the tree had already been replaced in 2023 because the first one had developed a fungus. This year's tree was already replaced once after the tree originally planted for the ceremony developed a fungus, the WUSA TV reported. A wide variety of diseases target Christmas trees, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Once the national Christmas tree came down, many immediately compared it to the Biden presidency. Here's one example. National Christmas tree falls down. The Republican House Committee on the Judiciary wrote in a post on X, formerly Twitter, perfectly summing up Joe Biden's presidency. Ouch. Without a doubt, Joe Biden's presidency has not gone well. But the truth is that Joe Biden and all of the other corrupt politicians in Washington are a reflection of the country as a whole. We are a fallen nation, and we are completely and utterly unprepared to handle the consequences of decades of very foolish decisions. In our time, Americans are becoming increasingly emotionally unstable. According to the CDC, the national suicide rate just hit the highest level in more than 80 years. Not 8 years, 80 years. The suicide rate among Americans, which has risen steadily over the past 18 years, has reached its highest point since 1941, preliminary data for 2022 shows. So this cut off in 2022. A whole year has passed since then. What do you think it is now? The suicide rate per 100,000 people in 2022 was 14.3, according to a report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released early Wednesday. The rate was 15 in 1941. Now, remember what was happening at the time in 1941. You're just coming out of the end throes of the Great Depression, and you're about to go into a Second World War. The latest numbers also show that men are killing themselves at a far higher rate than women are. The rate for males was 22.8 and 5.7 for females in 2021. The number of suicides for males in 2022 was 2% higher than the 38,358 deaths in 2021. For females, the 2022 number rose 4% from 9,825 deaths in 2021. Meanwhile, the worst drug addiction crisis in our history has resulted in yet another new record high for drug overdose deaths. Drug overdose deaths reached another record level in the United States this spring. New data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows as 2023 is on track to be another devastating year amid the drug epidemic. More than 111,000 people died from a drug overdose in the 12-month period ending in April, according to the new estimates. Now, if our society is so great, why are deaths of despair off the charts? Can anyone answer that question? And if so many Americans cannot emotionally handle the way that things are now, what's going to happen during the chaotic years ahead? In 2024 and beyond, there will be more political unrest, more wars, more pestilence, more economic troubles, more famine, and more natural disasters. In particular, one thing that I will be watching in the months ahead is the sun. A cluster of very large sunspots has become extremely active, and scientists are warning that this group could potentially pose a danger for our planet. A cluster of sunspots has rolled into view of Earth and may send a solar storm our way as early as Saturday. The cluster includes about a dozen sunspots that are around 125,000 miles wide, about 15 times bigger than our planet, according to space.com. The group is very active. It had already shot out 3 M-class and several C-class solar flares before it came into view, per spaceweather.com. Now, the article that I just quoted above was written before a full halo CME was unleashed on Wednesday. On Wednesday, the SWPC said a fourth CME, known as a full halo CME, prompted forecasters to upgrade the G2 watch to a G3 level geomagnetic storm watch for Friday. Full halo CMEs send out solar material away from the sun in all directions, appearing halo-like and usually result in geomagnetic storms at Earth. This faster moving halo CME is progged to merge with 2 of the 3 upstream CMEs, all arriving at Earth on December the 1st, according to the SWPC. Now, today is December the 6th, and I have to say, I did notice some kind of weird things going on, especially like with the internet. Now, I'm entirely convinced that the behavior of the sun will eventually become a huge story. We've already seen more activity during this solar cycle than we did during the last solar cycle. And this solar cycle is not expected to peak until next year at the earliest. Unfortunately, a new study reveals that this solar maximum is coming sooner than expected, most likely in early 2024. The new forecast comes from an Indian team of researchers in contrast with the latest forecast from NASA, which puts its arrival at late 2025. Now, if you think that the past few years have been chaotic, just wait until you see what is coming. The things that will happen in 2024 and beyond are truly going to be wild. And much of our population is completely and utterly unprepared to emotionally deal with the very challenging times that are approaching. We are a fallen nation with a fallen population. So, was it just a coincidence that the most important national symbol of our most important national holiday just violently fell to the ground? Of course not. I believe that someone is trying to send us a message, but hardly anyone is listening. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of our pre-market report with me, Dex the Algo Capitalist, yours truly, reporting from postwaytrading.com. Get ready, folks, because the great shaking is just getting underway. And we're going to talk more deeply about this in the um, coming podcasts. All right. So remember, those podcasts are exclusively on Rumble because of the censorship here on YouTube. You're not really able to talk freely like we would want to. All right. So with that being said, don't forget to smash that like button and like and share and subscribe. You never know who it may help or encourage. And with that, I'm out. Peace.